What's up, Gooners? Andrea Berta has just announced a bombshell price tag for Gabriel Jesus. Will this be the end of the Brazilian striker's time at the Emirates? But that's not all. PSG has just released a crucial update on the injury of a key player ahead of the Champions League final, and this could change everything. Furthermore, the failed loan of Ethan Nwaneri will bring extra money to Arsenal in an unexpected way. If you want to know all the details of these bombshell news stories, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and let's dive into what could be a decisive week for Arsenal. Let's jump straight into the first story because Andrea Berta has set a new Arsenal asking price for Gabriel Jesus, and it proves he's operating on a completely different level than Edu Gaspar ever did. Gabriel Jesus' Arsenal career never truly became what many of us hoped it would be. When the Brazilian first arrived from Manchester City in the summer of 2022, he completely transformed Arsenal's attack with his movement, pressing and link-up play. He made the Gunners look more aggressive, more confident, and far more unpredictable in the final third. Those first few months were genuinely exciting. We looked like a different team with him leading the line. However, injuries, especially the serious knee issue he suffered during the World Cup in Qatar, completely disrupted his momentum and derailed what should have been a brilliant Arsenal career. Now, with Victor Gyökeres and Kai Havertz both ahead of him in the pecking order, it genuinely feels like the right time for Arsenal and Jesus to part ways this summer. It's not working for either party anymore. Arsenal are reportedly open to selling Jesus this summer as they continue reshaping their attack under Andrea Berta's direction. The Brazilian is no longer viewed as an untouchable starter at the Emirates, which is a massive shift from where things were 18 months ago. Gyökeres has become the undisputed first-choice striker after his recent form, while Havertz's resurgence in various positions has further pushed Jesus down the hierarchy. That has drastically reduced his playing time and raised serious doubts over his long-term future at the club. Reports have even suggested Arsenal could consider offering Jesus as part of a swap deal to sign Julian Alvarez from Atletico Madrid. That would be interesting business if it could be structured properly. Financially, a departure would also make complete sense for Arsenal's wage structure. Jesus is one of our highest earners, taking home around £265,000 per week. That's a huge salary for somebody who is no longer guaranteed to start regularly in big matches. According to Court Offside, Serie A clubs such as AC Milan and Juventus are believed to be seriously interested in signing Jesus. A return to Brazil one day also remains possible, though that's probably more likely later in his career. Here's the crucial detail. Arsenal are said to have set an asking price of around £30 million for Jesus despite his injury history and reduced role this season. Whether clubs actually agree to pay that figure remains to be seen, especially considering his massive wages and contract situation. But here's why this matters so much. Even if Arsenal don't ultimately receive the full £30 million for Jesus, the absolutely crucial thing is that Andrea Berta is clearly starting negotiations from a position of strength. He's not desperate to move players out. That already feels very different to how Arsenal operated under Edu Gaspar. Far too many players left the club for disappointing fees or no fees at all to take side during the Brazilians' time in charge of recruitment. Think about the examples. Mesut Ozil left for free. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang departed for nothing. Alexandre Lacazette walked away on a free transfer. Those are three incredibly expensive players who brought Arsenal £0 in transfer fees. Matteo Guendouzi, despite his genuine talent and market value at the time, was sold cheaply to Marseille after his fallout with Arteta. We barely got anything for him. The same pattern applies to players like Bernd Leno, Lucas Torreira, Rob Holding, Callum Chambers and Nicolas Pepe. Arsenal rarely maximised their value in sales under Edu's leadership. Berta setting a high asking price for Jesus sends a completely different message to the football world. It shows Arsenal are finally prepared to negotiate aggressively rather than simply rushing players out of the door to free up wages. That alone suggests Berta could be a massive upgrade on Edu when it comes to the business side of football operations. He's not going to give players away anymore. Now let's talk about the Champions League final, because PSG have released an official injury update on Ousmane Dembele, and this could genuinely affect our preparation. Paris Saint-Germain have revealed that Dembélé will be closely monitored after suffering a muscle strain in his right calf during their match against Paris FC. There are just 12 days remaining until the Champions League final in Budapest, and the French winger is now in a genuine race against the clock to be fit. Dembélé went off against Paris FC after just 27 minutes, and PSG are claiming that the substitution was purely a precaution. But we all know what muscle strains can be like. They're unpredictable and can linger. A muscle strain just before the biggest match in European club football is far from ideal for PSG, and Arsenal will absolutely be keeping a close eye on updates about the 29-year-old current Ballon d'Or winner over the next week. PSG have confirmed officially that Dembélé has suffered a calf strain ahead of the Champions League final on May 30th. Over the next few days, he will remain under intensive medical treatment as they desperately try to get him ready to face Arsenal. PSG released this statement on their official website. Ousmane Dembélé, who was taken off as a precaution during last night's match against Paris FC due to a muscle strain in his right calf, will remain under treatment for the next few days. However, reliable French journalist Fabrice Hawkins claims that PSG are still expecting Dembélé to be ready for the final despite his recent injury. They're confident it's not serious enough to rule him out completely, but here's where it gets interesting for Arsenal. If Dembélé cannot start or isn't fully fit, Bradley Barcola would be the most likely candidate to replace him in PSG's attacking lineup. Dembélé is absolutely key to PSG's attack, despite them having world-class talents like Kvicha Kvaratskhelia and Desire Doué on either flank. He's their main creative threat and biggest goal danger from wide areas. Barcola is expected to leave PSG this summer, but he could end up playing a crucial part in the Champions League final against one of the clubs actively chasing his signature. That would be fascinating. Liverpool are also strongly after Barcola, as we discussed earlier, and the 23-year-old is believed to be keen on a move to Anfield. But it could be genuinely interesting to see whether watching him in the final helps Mikel Arteta's team convince him to move to North London instead. Barcola will get a massive opportunity to impress Arsenal's hierarchy in Budapest if Dembélé isn't ready. That could work in our favour for summer recruitment. From a tactical perspective, Arsenal might actually prefer facing Barcola rather than Dembélé. The Ballon d'Or winner is more experienced in these massive occasions, more unpredictable, and capable of individual brilliance that can decide finals. Now let's talk about Arsenal's finances, because there's more positive news on that front, and it involves Ethan Nwaneri's disappointing loan spell in the most unexpected way. Arsenal's finances are more than sound at the moment, and on the night we face Burnley to go within just one game of being champions, there's genuinely more positive financial news as well. The Gunners have spent a fortune in recent years on transfers, but our consistent qualification for the Champions League and smart sales of younger players like Emile Smith-Rowe, Rice Nelson and Eddie Nketiah has allowed us to spend within financial fair play limits. Mikel Arteta is expected to be backed heavily once again this summer to keep improving the squad toward genuine elite status. And now our finances are set for a further boost thanks to Ethan Nwaneri's disappointing loan spell at Marseille. Nwaneri took a big risk in going to Marseille in January, and despite not getting as many minutes as he might have liked, it will have been a valuable learning experience for his development. The numbers tell the story clearly. Nwaneri played just 412 minutes from a possible 1,710 available minutes while at the French club. That's barely any game time for a player who went on loan specifically to play regularly. He returns to Arsenal this summer facing a genuinely uncertain future about what happens next in his career. However, here's the twist. Arsenal are actually set to pocket extra money thanks to how the loan deal was structured. Marseille paid £1.3 million to take Nwaneri on loan initially, with the premise that they'd cover his wages and pay additional performance-related bonuses the more he played. According to the Mirror, the complete lack of game time for Nwaneri means Arsenal will now receive more money from the League One club than originally expected. The exact amount remains unknown, but it's additional revenue we weren't necessarily counting on. How does that work? The deal was likely structured with appearance bonuses and performance payments that would have cost Marseille more if Nwaneri played regularly. Since he barely featured, those bonuses weren't triggered, but Arsenal probably had guaranteed minimum payments built into the contract. A decisive year absolutely awaits Ethan Nwaneri now. A year or so ago, it looked completely unfathomable that Arsenal might actually consider selling him permanently. But now it seems nothing is genuinely off the table in terms of his future. On the surface of things, you'd like to think that Arteta brings him home and manages him carefully to ensure Arsenal eventually see the best version of him when he matures. However, PSR rules mean that should Arsenal receive a big fee for Nwaneri, this counts as pure profit in the accounts, giving us even more flexibility in the transfer market this summer. With the emergence of Max Daumann also shunting Nwaneri down the pecking order of academy talents, the teenager genuinely faces a huge summer that could define his entire career. Hopefully, his long-term future remains with Arsenal where he can develop properly. But if not, he should fetch a significant fee for the Gunners to use on other targets. Alright Gooners, that's all the massive news from today. Now I want to hear from you. Is £30 million the right price for Jesus? Would you rather face Dembele or Barcola in the final? And should Arsenal keep Nwaneri or sell him for pure profit? Drop all your thoughts in the comments right now. I read every single comment, and the debates you create are always top quality. Let's get a proper discussion going. And if you enjoyed this breakdown and want every Arsenal update as we head into the most important week of the season, you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button immediately. Smash it right now and turn on notifications. We're one game away from the title. Until next time, Gooners, stay focused, stay calm, and come on you Gunners!